What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today I'm talking about another highly anticipated release in the underground. I am talking about the latest offering from Castrator, Coronation of the Grotesque. This also came out on August 15th, this time on Dark Descent Records. Man, Dark Descent has been pumping out killer shit this year. But anyways, this is the band's second studio full-length overall. This is actually my first proper sit-down with an album. I do have the debut album, Defiled in Oblivion. I just haven't jammed it very much, but from what I've heard, it was fucking brutal, it was fucking pummeling, it was riffy, it was evil. Like, everything I love about death metal comes out of that album from what I've listened to. But yeah, this is my first proper sit down with this band, and of course, for those who don't know, this is an all-lady New York death metal band with members from all sorts of other bands. Like, you got Clarissa Bedini from Vicious Blade on vocals, you got Robin Mason from Gruesome and Durketta on bass, Carolina, I forget her last name, but she's the drummer, and then you got Sarah on guitars. And all four of them just come together and just have great chemistry as players and writers, and just coming up with old school death metal, but also at times brutal death metal moments that just come together like meat and potatoes. Basically the basic metaphor you could use for something like this. But of course, big thing with this band, make sure, dudes, protect your balls at all costs, because I know I want my junk intact. I don't want to piss anybody off in that sense. But anyways, with that being said, all testicle jokes and all that stuff aside, let's talk about the music on this album. So first off, it was produced by Taylor Nordberg from Inhuman Condition, amongst many other bands. I think the production on this album is pretty damn killer. It's got this almost more studio sound to it. Like, it has that like spirit going on in the production. Like, it sounds like this could have been recorded in like 1994, 1995, back during the peak of the Morrisound era of death metal. Kind of has that spirit a little bit. It's organic, but it's got a lot of cool compression on the guitars, but not in a bad way. Like, they had to compress it a little bit to keep certain shit out of the way, and it makes for a real crunchy guitar tone. Like, all the tones on this album are just monstrous. But we kick things off with Fragments of Defiance and immediately get reminded of classic Florida death metal. Blast beats, vicious tremolos, and thrashy riffs just come right at you, and pretty much across the board on this entire album, it just feels like a perfect amalgamation of old school death metal, but also at times some brutal death metal moments, particularly in the breakdowns and some of the vocals that Clarissa is delivering. Like, I will say, I'm a huge fan of her vocals. I was a big fan of her vocals on Vicious Blade's debut album last year, and thought those were just feral, like, blackened thrash vocals. Here she's showcasing everything she has in terms of extreme metal. Like, you can hear some black metal screams, you get a lot of gutturals on here. She's just feral as hell once again. And this song has some harmonies and grooves that remind me a little bit of Death. Like, that's a kind of a new influence coming in, is certain sections on this album remind me a lot of early Death, like Leprosy, Spiritual Healing. Hell, even on one point on Psalm of the Beguiled, there's an off-time groove that feels like it could have been on Human. It has that sensibility to it. But then we move on to I Am Eunuch. Very much like thrashy death metal. I would say this sounds closer to Vader than anything else. Like, the riffs and the speed, it's at Mach 10, it just feels like Vader. But then again, I've been listening to a lot of Vader lately, so I kind of got that vibe a little bit. But of course, you start from here through to the rest of the album, triplet chugs all the live long day. And of course, you know me, I love me some triplet chugs in death metal, because it's just makes me want to eat a fucking steak. But anyways, and then you get like these evil tremolos that I would argue, that I would make the argument, I should say, it sounds very similar to bands like Deicide and Cannibal Corpse, Malevolent Creation, like again, that early 90s more sound stuff, like it kind of has that vibe once again. But there's some more murky melodies, and that's another thing too, like here and there you do get some nice melody, but trust me, these ain't pretty ones. These are death metal melodies where they just sound moody and murky and dark, and they definitely show up here. And then we get to one of the big singles, Covenant of Deceit. For the most part, it feels very much like a death thrash song, like it's focusing on thrashy riffs and double time stomps. But there's some chug on here that honestly remind me a little bit of Broken Hope. Like I would say circa Loathing and Grotesque Blessings, like that particular era of Broken Hope. There's some chug on there that remind me, or more specifically Repulsive Conception. There's a little bit of that chug going on that reminds me of Broken Hope during that time period. But of course you also get some atonal melodies that kind of add a little bit more atmosphere, which I wouldn't say this album really has much in terms of atmosphere other than just how it's just pummeling your eardrums into submission. But here is where you also get more proper lead work shining, like the first two tracks, and to an extent the last original track, Discordant Rumination, more so like dive bombs, like Morbid Angel, Slayer dive bombs. But from I Am Eunuch all the way through Bloodbind's Curse, the lead work is just flawless. Like you get great melody, harmonies even show up, like Sarah doing a great job at doubling the guitars to give it more harmony behind the leads. But then we keep going on with tracks like Mortem Opitri or Piteri, I don't fucking know how you say that. This one just goes right for every trope I love of death metal. The thrashiness, tremolos, triplet chugs, definite Cannibal Corpse and Deicide riffs show up. Remnants of Chaos, the triplet chug that starts this track off, more so reminds me of Blood Red Throne, and I know Blood Red Throne can be pretty comparable to Castrator at times, like they both have similar songwriting chops in terms of the songs, obviously. But I like how there are certain grooves that they'll slow down on this track before you do eventually get tremolos and thrashy rhythms. Deviant Miscreant, I like how it starts off with this like high energy tremolo, but then it just shifts immediately into dark, evil, murky tremolo and blasts. And also this track, as well as Bloodbind's Curse, the blast beats are different. They're that Dirk Verburen blast beat that, I don't know, like, I wish I can learn how to play that blast and not suck at it, but more or less, it's one of my favorite styles of blast beats out there because it's very unique and interesting to play. But of course, this one has a little more groove. There's even a nice gallop going on. And then Psalm of the Beguiled, we again bring back like the Vader fury on here, but also that off-time groove that reminded me of Death Circa Human. But of course, it's going for all the other death metal tropes. And then Bloodbind's Curse, triplet chugs almost the entire time, but you do get some cool nuance. Not only the Dirk Blast, you also get like a death double time stomp that remind me of Spiritual Healing. But the tremolos, they're harmonized, which was something that I didn't really hear too much on this album. Like it was mainly just like, yeah, let's just get down and dirty on these tremolos. Here, some nuance by adding in the harmonies to the tremolos to kind of give it that more melodic flavor to everything. And then Discordant Rumination, you know, this one starts off with just riff city, blasting and dive bombs, triplet chugs, of course, tremolo thrash and groove, but the song itself, it's just riff city. It's just going for riffs upon riffs upon riffs. And I forgot to mention earlier with Fragments of Defiance, that as well as Discordant Rumination, breakdowns that instantly reminded me of Suffocation. Like, and Suffocation arguably is a big influence on a good chunk of this. But the final track is actually a cover of Exodus's Metal Command, and actually getting Gary Holt to come in to do the lead work on here. Now, I'm certain somebody can tell me this because the archives notes were not complete when I was looking up this stuff, but I'm wondering if Gary did the entire lead or traded off with Sarah. Either or, it sounded great, and they crushed this cover. It definitely feels in spirit of the original, but with that death metal charm to it. So overall, really the only thing I could find to complain about, and it's the most minor of grievances, perhaps a few of the transitions were a little bit too jagged, a little bit too abrupt at times. Like sometimes some of the transitions on a couple of tracks in particular just felt a little too like they run into one another. It didn't feel as smooth, but there are plenty of smooth transitions on this album when it came down to going from one part to the next. But aside from that, every song fucking ripped on here. I am going to go ahead and give this a 4.5 out of 5. This is up there amongst the best old school sounding death metal albums I've heard this year so far. It is just evil, it's brutal, it's everything I want in death metal. So if you are a fan of, God, there's a lot of bands, Blood Red Throne, Cannibal Corpse, Death, Deicide, Broken Hopes, Suffocation, Vader, definitely check this out. This is just kick-ass start to finish. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.